Okay, a couple of months ago we decided to start doing cryptic comments on these videos, and
That was your thing.
I know, I thought of it, well, you helped me decide which one I'm going to use, pretty much, because I don't want to sound like an idiot. So, I came up with a cryptic comment of Vigilante. Vigilante, of course, is replacing Headlock, which actually is the cryptic comment for next week's video. That's official now. Vigilante, well, I said this to a couple of people to ask what comes to their mind, and the immediate version was Batman. No one mentions the Crow. They just mention Batman. They're like, Batman versus what? And then I tell them, and they're like, that's a really good idea. So this is what happens.
I actually had this conversation.
I had this conversation with TJ, actually. We put this to the test to find out what happens when the Crow goes up against the 89 Batman. AJ, take it away.
Alright. I usually start by saying what they have in common. It's one of those things where you can't really explain what they have in common. You just look at them and you know.
I can throw one wrestling specific comment right away into something they have in common. In WCW, Sting parodied the Crow.
Oh, yeah.
In TNA,
Yeah.
Sting parodied
I seriously didn't think about that.
Heath's Joker. So yes, wrestling makes the world go round. I'm proving that once and once again.
Just for argument's sake, the comment from the Chicago Tribune, of all people, actually compares it in the comment on the DVD case. I don't know why I turned around, because there's no fucking way you could have read that from that distance.
You just saw red writing. I just
they weren't in the shot.
I didn't know if they were or not.
That's what you were worried about.
It'd been really awkward to see my Mickey cross in the shot.
Alright, we'll just go right into it. I don't really know how else to dive into this. I will say, the winner was basically already determined before I did it, because, not necessarily saying which one, but one of these is one of my favorite movies, ever. But most people don't really know me, so they probably don't know which one that is.
Correct.
So, the first category, obviously, is if you want to use the term lightly, I guess, the hero, which would be Batman versus Eric Draven, or Bruce Wayne, whatever you want to say. The characters in general. Apparently, some people, including yourself, apparently, when I was doing this the other day, some people are under the impression that when Eric Draven comes back from the dead and puts the paint on and the tape and all that, his character name is the Crow, which is not the case.
How am I supposed to know that?
He is, it refers to the Crow that, there's no explanation to it, really. It's just the Crow, the Crow is what brings him back to life. And basically,
Like a phoenix from the ashes.
what he lives on. Like, the villains finally figure out towards the end, if they can kill the Crow, then Eric will die again. Or become human again, or whichever. Eric doesn't get too much of a backstory. The only thing we know is that he is, like, a musician. And he's engaged to this girl, Shelley, and they're going to get married on Halloween. Trouble is David Patrick Kelly, who you probably know from The Warriors. He's the guy that hits the glass bottles together and calls them out. He's basically reassembled the Warriors like 20 years later. And they rape and murder Shelley, and they shoot Eric and throw him out of a 6-story window and kill him. And a year later, the Crow brings him back to life, and he goes after them. But there's, well, now that I've explained that, we'll go to Batman. It's kind of pointless to explain Batman. I don't know who doesn't know that.
You're the wrong person on this channel to explain Batman.
Basically, well, here's the thing. The interesting thing about Bruce Wayne is deciding whether or not, I mean, most people are pretty, even though he's a hero and everybody accepts a lot of people think he's the ultimate hero. While accepting that it's a very complex situation, which is what makes him so interesting and beloved by people.
Mm-hmm.
While most all people have accepted that Batman is this great ultimate hero, people also equally accept the fact that he's completely insane.
Correct.
Vicky even says in the movie, a lot of people think you're just as crazy as the Joker is. You know, because he, like Bale brings up in Begins, Begins. I was confusing it. A guy dresses up as a bat and goes around and clearly has issues. And there's even that scene where it's almost eerie when she asks Knox to find out about the alley that Bruce went to and dropped the flowers off. Mm-hmm. And his response is, he's really, like, Knox is kind of the comedy relief, almost to an obnoxious extent, throughout most of the movie. But then he goes full on serious and says, I really think your friend Wayne is messed up. Yeah. And they go through the old newspaper articles, and to think about it, you don't really think about it when you just hear the origin story, but the idea of this young kid having his parents murdered in front of him, it's very, it's done a lot darker and I'm throwing a lot of Begins in here for some reason. I can't. It's just to go along with, fuck it. The interesting thing is when we see the flashback, the supposed flashback, a lot of people think that maybe when Bruce realizes that Jack Napier is the one that killed his parents, it could just be his mind playing tricks on him and putting Jack Napier's face on the guy.
Possibly.
We don't really find out for sure. I mean, at the end, the Joker kind of somewhat confirms it, if you want to argue that, but given the situation, it could go either way.
Because in the comics, the Joker is not the person, or Jack Napier's not the person, it's just some punk guy named Joe Chill.
A lot of people actually think it's totally ridiculous that the Burton movie decided to go with the fact that the Joker did it thing. But regardless, that also goes into his psyche a little bit. If you want to believe the fact that Jack Napier didn't kill the Waynes, but Bruce is just so intent on revenge for what happened to them that he's pretty much going to put the face of all his enemies from now on the face of that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Even though only one movie covers that in the 4, but regardless. Like when I first started to comprehend Batman, I saw it a lot as a kid, but when I actually started to be able to comprehend movies and I saw Batman Forever, and we see the flashback again, I was actually almost under the impression Bruce was going to convince himself that Harvey Dent killed him.
Yeah.
So, you can tell it's a complex character because you can get that sense, mainly when he's in the bat suit, like when he and Vicky are in the cave, is the only time Bruce comes off like threatening to an innocent person. Because when he's Bruce, he's very
suave and sophisticated.
Yeah, and charming and all that. But the trouble is dealing with somebody that's supposedly psychotic, because they go around it. Unlike what Nolan did, Burton's Batman's not afraid to kill people.
No.
Which just kind of adds to that also. So, yeah. It's a very complex situation.
Do you want to compare Michael Keaton to Brandon Lee?
Yeah, probably. Like I said, we don't know much about Eric going into the movie. we know we mostly get a vibe from him throughout the movie.
Okay.
Eric is equally interesting though, because there are two different kinds of Eric. When we see him in his when he was alive, he was like this. He was just like nice to everybody. Like even when Ernie Hudson's going through his file, he calls him her nice guy boyfriend. Was murdered that night also. But the thing is what this has done to him, and the way he can go back and forth depending on who he's with, who he's like associating with.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's the little girl that he was friends with, that he was nice to, and he's got that calm, gentle voice with her, and he's got the calm, gentle voice with Ernie Hudson. He actually goes into Ernie Hudson's apartment and like just sits around, which is weird to do with a dead person, but
yeah.
Ernie Hudson does acknowledge that. So, but then you have the Eric that is confronting the people that killed him and Shelley, and he is this vicious murderer that has no remorse for anything. He, Tintin, for instance. Tintin is one of the guys in David Patrick Kelly's group. David Patrick Kelly's name is T-Bird, which is what I'm going to call him from now on because his name is too long to say all the time. And his specialty is basically knives. So there's this great scene where Eric traps him in an alley, and he throws a knife at him, and Eric catches it and throws it back at him, and it sticks in his shoulder and pins it to the wall. And the scene ends with Eric taking it out and then swinging it down. And we assume he stabbed him and killed him, because that's part of the revenge, is to kill these four guys.
Of course.
They don't get let on to Top Dollar till later, but we see Tintin's body later when it's being carried off, and there's like 6 knives sticking out of it. Jeez. And somebody makes a reference later that he basically treated him like a voodoo doll.
Wow.
And then there's the scene with Fun Boy, who is the drug addict that corrupts the girl's mom, basically. He's the one that started the rape, too. He's addicted to drugs, obviously, like the needle and shit like that, morphine.
Mm-hmm.
When they find Fun Boy, he has a shitload of needles stuck into his chest, and he's got blood on his chest in the shape of the crow symbol. And according to the cops, he died by choking on his own blood.
Wow.
And just to imagine that these two are the same person, it's just a matter of who brings out what in him. Because he's this really, even like in general, he's the really gentle soul. It's only the revenge for Shelley and himself that brings this out in him. Like once all this carnage is over, he's obviously he goes back to the grave and he's there. And everything's back to normal, and it's like that's another complexity thing, but it makes you. So it does kind of makes you wonder what more Eric was like when he was alive, which we really don't get any idea of, because the only time we see him alive is in flashbacks when he's with Shelley, and of course they're obviously being romantic all the time. So, but then again, there's also the girl. What's her name now?
Micah?
No, the little girl.
Darla? I'm looking at names here.
I want to say Sarah.
Sarah.
Okay. The fact that he befriended Sarah might show his personality when he was alive. Because her mom, who is Darla, Anna Thompson, who is great in this movie, by the way, I'll get to that later. She's basically, her mom's a drug addict, and she works at a bar, and she's just really trashy and neglectful and stuff like that. And Eric and Shelley basically took her in. So basically you get it's very interesting to think about this very good soul inside this person becoming what he is when he comes back from the dead. But it's great that they don't make him the full-on monster. Like, he's still Eric, and the vengefulness only comes when people who need vengeance taken out on them are present. So, I would say, given the balance that the two actors would have to do, I would say the point would go to Brandon Lee. There are obviously Michael Keaton was a more experienced actor.
Mm.
There are a couple of scenes where Brandon Lee's acting is a bit shaky, but there are scenes that really, really he rises above the not so good scenes. Next is this one is tough. You might think one totally weighs in one direction, but a lot of people aren't familiar with Top Dollar. I'm, of course, talking about the better villain.
Okay.
Jack Nicholson's Joker versus Michael Wincott's Top Dollar. I will say, by the way, on top of Tony Todd's character and Micah, Top Dollar is the main villain, and he's never referred to by his name. So, I'll go ahead and start with him, actually. Michael Wincott's this great actor that not many people know by name, but I'm sure they've seen him. He was in Talk Radio and Alien Resurrection and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, a whole bunch of things. He has this really funny part in Barry Lyndon's movie, What Just Happened, with De Niro, where he plays this director that's impossible to work with that takes his movie to Cannes. And he is this crime boss that's basically shrouded in mystery. Like it's like a half hour into the movie before he even shows up, and we don't really know what his deal is for a while. The only thing we know is that Micah is his sister, and they are incestuous. And they take women to bed with them and then kill them. His opening scene, he's in bed with Micah, and there's this naked woman in the bed. And Micah says, "I like her eyes." And then she has this knife that she's bringing down to the dead woman's eye. And Tom Miller's just kind of watching this happen like it's a normal thing. He has a lot of great... He's not in the movie very much, but every single scene he's in, he makes an impression. He's got this really long, like, goth musician hair, and he's very well dressed. He's like always in suits and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, kind of.
Close enough.
And he's one of those ones where pretty much he's much like the Joker. He has kind of a quip for every time he kills somebody or does something bad. One of them was I'm trying to remember what the context was. They're talking about Eric and about how they killed him or something, and they talk about Eric being a musician, obviously, but I can't remember what the lead-in was to it now. That's driving me insane. But they're talking about how brutally they killed Eric and the resulting stuff.
Yeah.
Top Dollar just kind of shakes his head and just scoffs and says, "Musicians." And there's this the scene where he kills Gideon, the pawn shop owner. He goes to this. He goes across the road. We think he's harmless. He's just this dude with long hair. And he's doing cocaine. But we don't really think he's threatening. But then, after he's interrogated Gideon about his run-in with Eric, he goes over to these doors. It kind of looks like giant freezer doors or something. But he opens it, and it's this wide range of, like, samurai swords. And he takes one out, and he sticks it completely through Gideon's throat. And while he's, like, dying, he says, "For God's sake, die, will you?" And he goes over to Tony Todd and he says, "Give me that." And he takes his gun, and he shoots Gideon dead. So he's shot Gideon to death while having a sword stuck through his throat. He just casually goes back to Tony Todd, hands the gun back, and just goes, "Thanks." And just goes on about the rest of what he was doing.
Nice.
Going back to the cocaine thing, there's a great moment where they're talking about Tintin's death. And they're saying how tragic it is, and he says, well, I think we all should have a moment of silence for poor Tintin. And then right at that moment, he takes a giant line of cocaine. He has a Jack line. This may sound very familiar. I would almost guarantee it was on purpose. It had to be on purpose. Tell me if this sounds familiar. We got the whole table of villains. Like, all the criminals.
Mm-hmm.
And you got guns on the table, and you got just evil plans afoot. And he's at the head of the table, giving his big villain speech. And then Eric comes into the room. And he sees Eric, and he takes a good look at him. And what do you think he says?
So many things come to mind.
Nice outfit.
Yeah.
Which is exactly in the exact same tone that Jack says it to Batman.
Wow.
Here's an interesting thing. This is what really, really, I hadn't really thought about it until just recently. Because I used to watch The Crow all the time, but obviously this was pre-2008, so I didn't have this in mind. But I've since thought about it. I don't know what people are going to think of this theory, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay.
This is just my... Everybody on the internet has their theories. I'm just going to throw mine out there. It's not really a theory, it's just a... what if.
Okay.
When you see Top Dollar as a character, and just the way he is, and the things that he does, and the way he acts, I have... For some reason, I got this big feeling the last time I watched it that Top Dollar may have been what Heath Ledger's Joker was like before he was the Joker.
It's very possible.
That's just... I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility. And of course, he's got that cold line at the end when they're on the church. And he's basically telling Eric that he's the one that had them. He's the one that had their apartment raided. He's the one that had them killed and raped, basically. And he says, "I'm sorry, what happened to you and your girlfriend happened, but if it's any consolation, it put a smile on my face."
Oh my God! Really?
Well, if it makes you feel better, those were more or less his last words, but we'll get to that later.
Yes, we will.
So now that I believe, waxed poetic is the term about Top Dollar,
I've used that a lot, actually.
I have to say this about Jack's Joker. Batman is a really good movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's, depending on your mood, it could be a great movie. And it's got, good characters. It's got the, it's got the Batman stuff. It's got the fight sequences. It's got the Bruce and Vicky stuff. It's got the Bruce and Alfred stuff. But honestly, the movie Batman entirely rests on Jack's Joker.
That's very true.
The whole movie is what it is because of Jack's Joker. And there's a, it's weird, because I always thought it was weird, and it was just some weird demand by Nicholson. Obviously, the weird thing when you watch the credits is Nicholson's first credited, putting him above the actor that plays Batman.
True.
Honestly, though, when was the last time you saw, it would have been last year, when we watched Batman again.
Yep.
I'd say it's pretty clear Nicholson has more screen time.
Yeah.
Which is really bizarre that a movie called Batman has a villain that has more screen time than Batman.
It's a weird comparison, but the first thing that comes to my mind was this year's Lone Ranger. The movie was about Tonto, not about the Lone Ranger.
Was Michael Keaton the Army Hammer of 1989?
Oh my God! Yes, he was.
So, but yeah, you could almost say Jack Napier might be the main character.
Yeah, easily.
The only thing throwing you off is the title. The movie being called Batman means nothing, really. Which speaks volumes. And the great thing is, if that were to normally happen, you get really worried that maybe they're overusing the villain. Because you like when they're just, like Top Dollar, they're there sporadically, but when they're there in those little moments, they make a massive impression. But the thing that really makes Jack's Joker special is the fact that he never gets tiresome, and he's in almost the whole movie.
Yeah.
And you would think a character like this might get tiresome, and depending if it's in the right hands or not. Like, on paper, you would say, I don't know, that's a lot of Joker, I don't know.
Might want to cut a couple of those scenes out.
But, in this, the scenes without him are good, but you do, even though he's in most of the movie, you still anticipate him to come back when he's not there.
Exactly.
Which I think is a massive feat, and of course, you know, it's just an iconic performance by an iconic actor.
Indeed.
So, Michael Wincott is a clear underdog in this battle.
Yes.
But I want it to be known that he absolutely 100% holds his own in this battle. Completely. But I do have to give the point to Jack's Joker, obviously. Of course. So, going on to the supporting cast. This one's actually pretty easy for me to decide. We'll start with the Crow. We have Sarah, obviously, who's that girl, and we have Darla, her mom. This is like its own story that kind of goes off to the side, but it's still, it doesn't feel like it's going off the track. It's all in the same area. And it's this heartwarming story that actually comes to like a close because after because Darla's with Fun Boy doing drugs when Eric kills him, and that basically meant he actually uses whatever unexplained magic the Crow gave him, but she's injected herself with morphine, and he actually makes the morphine come back out of the holes in her arm.
Nice.
And tells her to go home. And then there's this really nice scene of her, like, trying to cook breakfast and be a mom, and Sarah's, you know, just being, what's the word?
Motherly?
Standoffish or something.
I know what word I was looking for there, sorry.
She's, because she's used to being neglected, she thinks this is just some bullshit to make up for what all she's done. But then, you know, there's that sad moment where she starts to say, I was never good at this mom thing anyway, and then Sarah, you know, wants to grasp this moment as much as she can. So she stops being standoffish and, you know, says, please cook as much breakfast as you want and all that. And that's just this tiny story within the whole picture that comes to this nice arc. And it's like I said, Anna Thompson, she goes by a different name now, but
Bovine.
Yeah. Anna Thompson was great in this movie. And she has like little sporadic parts in random movies, you know, but she just kind of comes and goes. Bad Boys would be one of those movies. Something wild. But that's great. And then there's, like I said, there's David Patrick Kelly and his group. It's T-Bird, Fun Boys, Skank, I think.
Yep, Angel David.
And Tintin. And Skank is kind of the comedy relief. He's this. Well, here's the thing: the Crow uses a lot of comedy, and it doesn't really work. Like, it's not really that funny all the time. But in such a dark atmosphere, like, this movie is really dark. Even if the comedy's not funny, you appreciate it being there because of everything else that's going on. It would be way too overwhelming. It's nice to have, even if it's, you know, seems cheesy and schmaltzy, I guess, in some cases. It's nice for it to be in there because it's like there's this moment where I laugh every time I see him. It would have been great if it didn't go acknowledged, but the way it's acknowledged is kind of funny too. We're in Ernie Hudson's apartment and he thinks he's alone, and he's wearing a t-shirt, his boxer shorts, and his police hat. It's just, every time I see it, I just laugh. And then, of course, you know, Eric has this ghastly appearance. He's come back from the dead, and he's wrapped in tape and old clothes, and he's got his face painted pale white, and he's got the black lipstick, and he just looks at Ernie Hudson with the most innocent look and says, "You still have your hat on." And he takes it off in embarrassment. Regardless, Skank is basically the main comic relief. And he is, pretty much everything he says is just fast, babbling incoherence, because he's just so hooked on any kind of drug he can find, basically.
He's tweaking 24/7.
Yes. There's this great scene where Eric has just killed T-Bird in this massive explosion. So Skank goes back to tell Top Dollar about it, and he's trying to tell him and Tony Todd about it, and he's freaking out, and he's just saying this and this, and he's actually like playing out the scene, and then he's and Top Dollar just kind of looks at Tony Todd and says, "You know, I'm thinking we should just videotape this and play it back in slow motion." Tony Todd's name is Grange, by the way, which isn't never said. And he's a great character because he's like, it's like you said, you were asking me if Top Dollar had a Bob,
Yes.
like Jack does. Grange is basically his Bob, only, the interesting thing that Tony Todd does is, with this part, is he doesn't directly threaten people, but just his presence is imposing, and he's like the perfect bodyguard.
I agree.
Because he only has a weapon in the movie like once, and that's for the ending shootout, and the time where he hands it to him to kill Gideon with. But no, just him being there, just whatever. I don't know what it is about Tony Todd, but just something about his presence in general is very intimidating.
Agreed.
Especially this character. Like I said, you can think back to the Candyman or even the morgue attendant in the Final Destination movies.
Yes.
Or well, yeah, I was going somewhere, but I forgot what it was now. But no, all he does in this movie is wear a suit and glasses. He looks like a Giancarlo Esposito, actually. And that's all he does. He just stands there while Top Dollar does his thing. And he's just, I don't know. Am I missing anybody?
The only names you did not mention are Mickey and Torres.
Torres is basically the cop that keeps, he demoted Ernie Hudson for looking too far into Shelley's murder because he knew them, basically. And I don't remember who the other guy is.
Mickey.
I don't know, don't come to me. So yeah, this is filled with great supporting characters. Batman there's Vicky Vale, who is, every now and then she fights back when she has to, like, she can be confrontational to the Joker, and
Like she throws the water in his face.
but for the most part, and she's confrontational to Bruce also.
Yeah.
She feels like he's lying, which, you know, is out of character for the normal damsel in distress, which is nice, but for the most part, she's a damsel in distress.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more damsel in distress than there is Vicky fighting back,
Yes.
no matter who it is. But, you know, the character's likable enough. She's not, like, unbearable, despite the fact that she spends half her screen time screaming.
Yes.
There's Knox. Like I said, Knox is... This is of no fault of Robert Wall. It's the character. The character can get kind of obnoxious. And he's there to be comedy relief, and there are some times where it works. Like, it's mainly his ad-libs.
Yes.
Like, Robert Wall's ad-libs. Like, the one where he's, obviously he's the only one that believes in Batman.
Mm-hmm.
So, they show him that illustration they did, and it's like a bat in a suit.
Yeah.
He says, "Have you seen this man?" And, Knox walks away, and as he walks away under his breath, he says, "What a dick." That was an ad-lib. And then there was, I don't know why. I don't think this was an ad-lib, or maybe it was, I don't know. But for some reason, just his delivery of it always makes me laugh when he's talking about the possibility of a suicide. And then he gets hung up on. And the way he just says, "Hello," and then he looks at Vicky with this genuinely shocked look and just says, "He hung up."
I'm a big Robert Wuhl fan because of Arliss. Arliss is an awesome TV show that most people completely skipped out on.
Don't forget his tour de force and Good Burger as the construction worker.
Absolutely.
He was also good in that Tales from the Crypt episode with Joey Pants about the magician. But there was I got sidetracked. We were talking about Robert Wuhl's filmography.
Not a problem with that. We're going into supporting cast and Batman.
Oh yes, what I was saying was there was actually in the original script there was actually the thing in the movie is Vicky has it for Bruce and Knox is just kind of off to the side.
Yep.
Apparently in the original script this was like a full-on love triangle.
Yep.
Which is it's probably a good thing they toned that down.
Yes.
But regardless, I think the movie might still have just a little too much Knox, just the tiniest bit. I don't know. There's Jack Palance makes an impression. He's only got 2 scenes, but he Jack Palances those scenes up.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Bob.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, Bob even got his own action figure.
I had it actually. It came with a removable hat. It really did because I took his hat off every once in a while. It was fun.
He's Tracy Walter, another person who showed up in Something Wild.
That's
And
interesting.
He's like a really good friend of Jack Nicholson in real life, so it's
That's even mentioned here
the
too.
Joker Bob dynamic was always going to be there. Like I said, he doesn't do much, but everybody loves Bob.
Everyone does love Bob.
There's Alfred. Alfred pretty much does the Alfred thing. He's there to be the loyal butler, but then every now and then have he has the heartwarming scene where he talks about Bruce's childhood and all that. But regardless, I think it's pretty clear the Crow just has much better supporting characters, and they're a lot more fleshed out. And like I said, they even have their own stories going on. So that point goes there.
You completely glossed over Billy D. Williams and
Yeah, Harvey Dent. Tell me what Harvey Dent does in Batman.
nothing.
We have enough in this city to worry about besides ghosts and goblins.
Thank you, Lando.
Oh yeah, Pat Engle's Commissioner Gordon. He's whatever. He's good. He's Commissioner Gordon.
Jerry Hall is Alicia. Alicia.
You said you could watch me. You said I could watch you improve the paintings.
She's kind of like a prototype for Harley Quinn, but not quite. It's kind of like it's not there yet, but you see it's going to progress and it's going to eventually end up.
Until she threw herself out of the window.
Yeah.
She can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs.
Very nice.
Alright, next we're going to do directors, which was a suggestion from you.
Yes.
Alex Proyas and Burton, obviously. I love Alex Proyas. His movies are... He's
All over the place.
I don't know what he does, but he's awesome. He's responsible for Dark City and Knowing and...
iRobot.
Yeah, which is interesting. Kind of an interesting one to run in there. But notice all these movies are very good.
Yeah.
Great. He was actually... I might be making a mistake here, but I'm pretty... No, never mind. No? I want to say, coincidentally enough, I think at one point Proyas had the Batman Year One project.
I believe that's correct.
Which it's long gone now, but back when it was like in, a thought process.
I was reading about Year One a little bit ago.
Yeah, Aronofsky had it at one point.
Yep.
This one's pretty easy. I'll get through it fast because we're getting late in the video. We're almost 40 minutes in. This one's pretty simple. Alex Proyas has this great vision in every movie he does.
Great.
And he has this just generally unsettling dark tone that he manages to create through the whole movie. Like there's this, I don't know what it is, there's this one shot that I just fucking love, and it only lasts for like a second, I don't know why. It's, Top Dollar and Micah and Grange are all in the car, and they're driving, and they're on a bridge. And it looks like it's snowing, but it's not. But it's like lights or something. But it only lasted for a second, but just this one shot was just great to me for some reason. I can't get enough of it. The Crow has this genuine feeling about it. Batman is a Burton movie all over.
Yeah.
There's a lot of movies that have the Burton feel. Like, when you watch Batman, you think Burton. But The Crow has its own whole feel
Correct.
that withstands the whole movie. Sustains the whole movie. And it just... I said, this is not just... Maybe not just even these movies, really, but... I mean, Burton has had, moments of absolute greatness, like Edward Scissorhands and Ed Wood. But, Proyas just... I just can't say enough great things about him. So I'm going to give that point to The Crow. The fifth... We're on the fifth now, right?
Yes, we have 2 left.
The fifth category would be, coincidentally enough, both these movies end in a final showdown in a church. Once again, I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but even this particular shot on the DVD case is actually Eric entering the church for the final showdown.
Nice.
These are actually, they're not very different. Well, they are very different, but they're actually in reverse.
Okay.
They both start at the bottom of the church, and they both end at the top.
Correct.
On the roof. But the thing is the journey up there. With Batman, there's a big action scene on the way up to the roof of the church.
Correct.
And then once they're up to the roof of the church, there's not really action. It's just the stuff that happens. It's kind of the reverse effect for The Crow. When they're on their way up to the roof, nothing's really happened. There's a shootout in the main, whatever that's called. But then when they're on their way up to the roof, nothing's really going on. But then when they're on the roof is when the big action scene happens.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great because it gives you a lot more of that, the final showdown you look for in a hero and a villain. I mean, yeah, obviously we get to see Batman beat the shit out of the Joker, but...
Yeah.
The fight in The Crow is a full-on fight. Like, Top Dollar's got the sword out, and Eric has grabbed, like, this... I don't even know what it is. It's like a steeple or something. And they have a sword fight on top of the... And it's raining. You can't have an awesome, epic brute fight without rain.
Not at all. Even Last Action Hero.
Yeah, not to mention that rain is actually a main theme of the movie, but that's another story for another time. The church scene in Batman is almost like a video game. It's like each floor is a level. Don't you think?
Yeah.
But then there is but no, just the I guess while we're talking about this, we might as well talk about the results of said showdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I guess this also goes into which villain had the better death.
Yep.
Which is part of the fifth category as well.
Yeah, no annotation on that one.
It's a very creative what he does to the Joker, obviously.
Yeah.
He, the Joker is basically getting away. He's on the ladder, he's on the helicopter, he's going away. Nothing's gonna stop him. So, Batman manages to shoot his grapple gun and tie a gargoyle to the Joker's ankle, which pulls him off the ladder, and he takes the entire plunge all the way down. Now, regardless, Top Dollar is also taken out by a gargoyle in a totally different way. The church in The Crow is not near as tall as the one in Batman, so
okay.
The Joker had that giant plunge. But the thing is the interesting thing about Top Dollar's plunge is he doesn't reach the ground.
Ooh.
It's this great shot. It's pretty disgusting, but it's, he had it coming. Eric learns that he can touch people, and he can either experience what they've experienced, or they can experience what he's experienced, or something like that.
Okay.
The science of it is never really gone into, but
okay.
After Shelley was raped and stabbed and shot and whatever, she was in the hospital for 30 hours before she died. And she was in pain the whole time. So what he does is, after Top Dollar says that you put a smile on my face line, Eric says, "I've got something I have to give you." And he grabs Top Dollar by the face, and basically what it comes down to is Shelley's 30 hours of pain, Top Dollar is feeling all at one time.
Ooh.
And then basically after that he throws him off the roof of the church. And there's this gargoyle that's got like horns, and it's got a fountain that comes out of its mouth.
Ooh.
Well, Top Dollar hits that gargoyle on the way down, and he is impaled through the chest, and he is impaled through the back of his head, out his mouth, and the fountain coming out of the gargoyle's mouth runs red.
That's awesome. That's Porteous right there for you.
I'll say it just for the sake of how weird it is. That is one epic church showdown. I gotta give that point to the Crow. The last one was another suggestion by you because I couldn't come up with a fifth category. Is which one has the better backstory? Which I already covered in the first category, actually.
Kind of.
Batman has this whole thing about, basically the murder of his parents turning him psychotic after it happened in front of him. What happened to Eric and Shelley is horrible. And it shows, obviously makes him go from the gentle soul that he is to the murdering machine that he is back to the gentle soul and so on.
Okay.
But the backstory in The Crow is actually pretty basic. It doesn't really... Bruce experienced it as a child, so he's actually grown up with it and has been able to progress with age.
Yeah.
Whereas there's not really... They don't really do a whole lot with the backstory in The Crow. It pretty much is what it is, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not really a whole lot to build on with it. But nevertheless, The Crow is The Crow, and Batman has this whole thing going on. But
yes.
Since it's the category, I'll go ahead and give that point to Batman. Which makes The Crow victorious by 2 points.
Yeah.
And yeah, so now that you figured that out, The Crow has always been one of my favorite movies ever. So Batman was never going to win, but but Batman is great.
It goes back to the very first verses we ever did. The Wizard of Oz was never going to lose to Oz the Great and Powerful.
Yeah.
But it was basically done to prove that it's a lot more of a close battle than you would think it would be. And this way, I thought it was reversed, but that's...
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
That's
The Cosmo Kramer.
Yeah.
In you right now. But we will say right now, it's really interesting because these both are headed for extreme reboots. The Crow franchise is going to be taken over by Luke Evans. Yeah. That was announced in May of this year.
For a long time, it was going to be Bradley Cooper, but then that fell through.
And there was going to be Tom Hiddleston, and then it was going to get Alexander Skarsgård.
Hiddleston would have been awesome.
They were all options, and then Skarsgård was the last one that got himself out of it. And then they announced on the beginning of May that Luke Evans was taking over.
Yeah, for the record, The Crow has a lot of straight-to-video sequels. I saw City of Angels. I don't remember anything about it. I didn't even bother to see the others. But
and obviously, my boy Affleck is taking the Bat reins. So, yeah, they're both going to be a completely different vision coming very soon. And this versus has nothing to do with those coming out on the horizon. It's just the fact that we wanted to put these two together. So, next week's going to be really interesting.
We actually know what it is this time.
Yeah, next week, like I said, Cryptic Comet is Headlock. And if you think about it too much, you're probably going to overthink it, and you're probably going to be wrong. So, that's the best way to put it. So, any parting comments for fans of Batman that wonder why the Crow won?
Oh, well.
That's all you're going to say is, oh, well.
I think I made my case. This video is, 45 minutes long?
Yeah.
50.
Either way, Batman is an enjoyable ride. It's a very good movie. It's got a lot of great performances in it, a lot of iconic performances in it. But like with Toy Story 3 versus The Brave Little Toaster.
Oh yeah, another category you suggested that I ultimately didn't do was soundtracks.
Yeah.
I didn't even bother to ask you. The Crow has like this iconic '90s soundtrack.
Yes.
Would I have been comparing this iconic '90s soundtrack to Danny Elfman or Prince?
You know, there is actually a case for both of those. But Ben's the one that does music on this channel, so maybe he'll do it somewhere down the road. I can get him. Maybe I might be able to get him to do that. So who knows? Maybe there'll be a part 2 of this with Ben talking about soundtracks. So until next week, AJ, parting words.